Greetings, family. Greetings once again, and welcome to another quarantine convos with gotkushTV. Yes, indeed. Hold on a second. It don't sound like I'm coming through. I have to make sure that I'm coming through. 1, 2. Okay, family, greetings, and welcome to another quarantine convos with gotkushTV. We are here and in the building, and we will soon be joined by our brother Keidi Obi Awadu, all the way live from Las Vegas in the United States. So stay tuned, kings and queens. Stay tuned because you know, we're getting to you very, very shortly. We've got 1, 2 technical hitches right about now, so do bear with us. We're going to make sure that we get it to you in a sec. I'm just going to set up to give you our usual introduction, and we're going to get Brother Keidi to you in a little piece, family. So make sure when you come in to like up the video, please like up the video, share the link, share that link far and wide, family. Share the link far and wide, and make sure the family all about the place, yard and foreign, can feast from the wellspring of the wisdom of Brother Keidi Obi Awadu and the fantastic, beautiful Black African media institution that is gotkushTV. We are up in the house, and we are going to be delving into Brother Keidi's latest works, kings and queens. Brother Keidi's latest works. So do stay tuned for all them something there, because we're going to be going in very, very, very well into the issue of the COVID-19 and also how Africa can feed the world. Once again, kings and queens, we're going to be delving deep into Brother Keidi's latest works, including relating to the COVID-19 and how Africa can feed the world. I'll be back after these messages. gotkushTV. After a stellar 2019, your #1 Black conscious media platform is getting ready to go into overdrive for 2020. As we promised last year, we launched The Inside. We premiered the pilot for the Black Group Economic Show. We dropped 2 new seasons of World the #1 platform for artists with a message in the music. We've seen you out on the road, the Black Carpet Awards, the Reparations March, the Legacy Center of Excellence, and more. We brought you Dr. Mumbi, the legendary Bob Andy, Queen Diambi, Kemi Seba, Esther Stanford Hossein, Leo Mohammed, Brother Leader Badaka, and more. And now, 2020 is set to see gotkushTV taking it to the next level. First up, look out for the official launch of the gotkushTV website, your official portal for all things GKTV, including new shows, news, views, and reviews, soon to be serving you with advertising opportunities and the launch of the GKTV African market. gotkushtv.com will also be a global hub for all things Black, conscious, and empowering from all over the Black world. Black achievements, Black excellence, education, health, positive Black imagery, entrepreneurs, Black brands, and charity work. All this and more can be found here at gotkushtv.com. Then there's the new show, Decipher, the dynamic discussion and debate show. Health is wealth, practical tips for living in wellness. Kush Communiversity, home of Black Warrior Scholarship. And UK Fire Entertainment, bringing you a slew of music videos for your listening and viewing pleasure. Look out for more of The Insight, Wordsmith, and the full 3rd season of the Black Group Economic Show, all coming your way soon. As always, the GKTV film team is available for hire to cover your events and all filming needs. Visit us at gotkushtv.com for hire inquiries and more information. Stand by all Black businesses through our website, social media, and show content. We have monumental advertising, sponsorship, and network opportunities waiting especially for you. gotkushTV is about to take off. To join us for the ride, there's 4 things you can do. 1, subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell to make sure you don't miss a release. Join us on all social media and hit up gotkushtv.com to subscribe to our mailing list for exclusive opportunities in the near future. 2, like. Let us know your feeling on our content by hitting that ever so important button of approval. 3, comment. We want to hear your feedback on everything we're putting out. So make sure your presence is felt in the comment section. 4, share. Spread the word by hitting that share button and exposing your circle to the magnificence that is gotkushTV. We look forward to building with you throughout 2020 and servicing you with high quality black media production. gotkushTV. Beyond discussion, beyond debate, we put the power in black media. Yes, indeed, kings and queens, you're locked into the number one black media, conscious black media platform coming out of the UK, kings and queens. It is gotkushTV. Welcoming you right here for another edition of the Quarantine Convos, where we travel around the black world, checking in with our family, our community, because we are a global community, kings and queens. How we are coping with the COVID-19 and the works of our respective family members, kings and queens, around the world. Today, we are blessed to be joined by a pioneer in digital black media production. We are blessed to be joined by one of, if not the key, preeminent medical researcher of our time. We are blessed to be joined by the forerunner, the only man that I know who self-defines as a Pan-African futurist, kings and queens. Yes, indeed. If you don't know, you're about to get to know. He goes by the name of Brother Keidi Obi Awadu, aka the Conscious Rasta, aka Chef Keidi, aka Brother Keidi.
my brother Shakara. What a joy it is to be with you once again on gotkushTV. Excuse me for a few minutes of fumbling around in the background looking for the link that I've been to several times, but sometimes I get so many inputs coming inside my head, things scatter around a little bit. But it is a joy to be with you once again on the best conscious black media broadcast out of that beautiful place where the sun shines sometimes a year.
I know you're a technical man, Brother Keidi. How does my mic sound?
You sound absolutely wonderful. I appreciate you. You know, you are so responsive, resilient, and open, brother. We salute you for your many, many commitments. And hey, let's just go on about this thing here, man.
Yes, my brother. Yes, my brother. So, I mean, you're here partly because you've done a whole heap of work on this recent COVID-19 situation, medical research, scientific research that we can all feast on. But before we delve into that, let me ask you a more, like, let's say, sociological question in terms of our community over there in Las Vegas. To what extent is there a black presence in Las Vegas?
Las Vegas is a city with a worldwide reputation that is to be appreciated as well. There is a substantial black community here. When I travel around the world, I say I'm from Las Vegas. People say, "Oh, Las Vegas." Well, tell me what you know. And they know about the shows, the theater, the spectacle of the casinos, etc. But then I ask them, "What do you know about Black Las Vegas?" And they can't say anything. And there are about 60,000 people of African heritage living in this city, and it's unfortunate that they have such a very low presence of really distinguishing themselves. That's kind of one of our self-criticisms that we are dealing with here. This is a city with an immense amount of sunshine. So I have tried various times to get a cooperative going amongst the community to be pioneers and to be kind of leading edge research into renewable energy, photovoltaic as solar thermal power here. We got strong winds that blow across Las Vegas. And so we could get into wind power as well. Yet it's kind of a different type of place in many ways. Las Vegas resembles an old American southern city from 20 or 30 years ago, and that's not necessarily a compliment.
Okay, understood, Brother Keidi. But you're not from Las Vegas, though. You're not born and raised in Las Vegas.
I am a refugee from Los Angeles, repatriated to Los Vegas about 8 years ago. Originally born in Columbus, Ohio. For 30 years, I traveled across the country as a professional musician and settled then in Southern California, which had a robust entertainment industry there and had a wonderful career there. But Los Angeles, like so many other cities, has become too dense, too crowded. The traffic is just unbearable in Los Angeles. And the cost of living, like London, has just gone up so exorbitantly that I was doing little more than just paying the bills month to month, losing a little ground as the seasons went by. And so I just moved 4 hours east of Los Angeles. We call this East LA. And the cost of housing here is probably about 1/3 of what it was in Los Angeles.
Okay, now I'm just asking you some questions so our listeners who may not be aware can get a vibe for who you are, Brother Keidi, because you know we can get into the information, but I think that it's right that people get to know who you are. Brother Keidi, I don't know if I've ever told you this before. The first time that I actually became aware of your existence. Have I ever shared that story with you before?
I think we've shared a couple of origin stories, but I always love hearing them again. I crowd my head with so much new data every day that I forget to keep the reminiscing stuff handy. So please enlighten me.
So that back in the day of VHS, big video.
True that.
Indeed. I can't remember where we got it from, but I guess it was at a store at an event. My parents, it may have been an African Liberation Day in the 90s, must be the mid 90s. And my parents came home with a videotape with a black cover, and it said rap, hip hop, and the black man's heaven or something like that. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
And you was on there at that time. You had a lot more hair than you do now.
True that one. I still have it, but it's in the closet now.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And it was called Brother Keidi Obi Awadu, aka the Conscious Rasta. Yeah. And he was breaking down the symbolism within rap and hip hop music videos, and the death of Tupac and Biggie, and all those kinds of things there. And we learned a lot from that, even though it challenged us because we were obviously disciples of hip hop and rap, and it challenged our thinking. And our parents put us in front of it for it challenged our thinking. And so thank you for that, because it definitely informed a lot of my thinking at the time. And it has continued to contribute to the work that I'm doing now. So we give thanks for your works in that regard. So now that I put that out there, just give people an idea of your development as the Conscious Rasta, as Brother Keidi Obi Awadu. Where have you been? What have you done? How did you come into Pan-Africanism and Black consciousness?
This is a wonderful long story. And just a brief to follow up, I do recall those videos first making it into UK. I had met a group of African video producers from London. We met at a conference in Harlem, and I was speaking at the conference, and they were just very enthused with the material that I presented. I remember that conference because I guess my reputation had got out in advance of me getting there. So by the time the conference comes, I had not even spoken a word, and I sold out of all of my materials. I had like $2,500 worth of materials sell out before I'd even spoken. So, I had been on some TV shows and other things. And then I specifically pulled 2 of these videos out, and I gave them to these 2 brothers, and I says, take these back to UK. Replicate them as much as you want. You have full rights to reproduce these, and if you want to sell them and make your money, you do so, because this voice needs to get beyond the boundaries of the United States. And when I got to UK, the first times I visited to speak, every house was packed based upon those 2 visionary brothers and them following my instructions. And I hope they became billionaires off that.
Most definitely. Well, beyond the financial reward, I'm sure many people gained a lot of rewards in terms of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So we give thanks. But my question in relation to your own development, where have you been and what have you done?
I want to stand on the shoulders always of those who came before us.
Yes, sir.
As we reach for the stars, we always remember that we stand upon the shoulders of giants. In my own family, my father was an industrial chemist. He rose up from sharecropper, which is the most humble origins Black people arose from. And he educated himself to become an industrial chemist, and very profound, very wise man. My mother, who died at a very young age, she was a phenomenal singer, and she was just a beautiful creature. And at age 16, she's on a college campus doing the term papers and writing the reports and things for other students on the campus. And so she was also brilliant. She homeschooled us. And so I'm proud to say that before entering the first year of primary school, was actually able to read from my father's college textbooks, which he kept in the home, teaching myself to speak French by the age of 6 years old. So beautiful. a very close connection with academia at a very young age. So going all through school, I was a very good student, top of the class every year. But you know something, when I graduated from secondary school, high school as we call it here, I didn't even enroll in college. Nobody even breached the subject to me. Excuse me, sir, would you like to go to college? My father never brought it up. The school counselors never brought it up. So fortunately, when I came out of secondary school, I spent 1 year just kind of tripping over myself. And the next year I ended up landing a job in a biological research laboratory where I worked for 4 years. So I kind of spent what would have been my university years actually in the field of cellular biology as a cryogenics technician, which is a fancy saying I was a sperm freezer for 4 years when I first got out of high school. But I learned a lot about cellular biology, about laboratory processes, and that passion, that fascination stayed with me all my life. Diverted from there, that was the only job I ever held in my adult life. I went then 30 years into the music industry, traveling all around the world, played a lot of great music with jazz artists, R&B artists, recording artists from across the board, including almost all of the reggae acts of the time that were recording artists. I got a chance to work with a long list of them. I'm proud of that. But along the line, as we're traveling, this thing called HIV AIDS appears in the mid-1980s and kind of pulls me out of the music industry and pulls me back into science, molecular biology, cellular biology, because at the time we thought HIV was an assault on humanity, that the virus was threatening Black people in particular. And I said to myself, well, since I can read these documents, since I've been reading scientific literature all of my life, let me go ahead and start exploring this stuff. So I started accumulating more and more of that information, which really kind of coincides with the fact that I had become a vegetarian vegan, learning about ITAL food, and was all of these things starting to swirl about me. So this character, the conscious Rasta, then starts writing about these explorations into science and into culture and so many other things. I just released last week my 35th book out, The Blackest Soil, Africa Can Feed the World. And this book is a scientific roadmap to agricultural preeminence for the 21st century. So we're very serious about the application, practical application of science. And the final point I want to say is this: I represent the Imhotep factor that is real, that has returned. We stand up strong and proud, and we say we have the scientific brilliance to be able to match any other group on this planet. And we therefore stand up to say the African voice has returned, the Imhotep voice has returned, and the world is going to start to listen to us more and more. The first thing we have to do, Brother Shakara, and I know you know this, we have to convince our people to listen to us and to take us serious as well.
Most definitely. Thank you for that succinct but very comprehensive idea of, you know, your history in this thing. A quick thing, brother. I heard it through the grapevine that you actually had the opportunity to work with George Clinton and the ParliamentFunkadelic at one point.
Well, I wasn't employed by them, but my brother was really good friends with the Fuzzy Haskins, one of the Horny Horn players. And I got to be good friends with Mike Hampton and a couple of other members of the group. I got a chance to hang out with them backstage. And so on a couple of their concerts, as they were on the Mothership Connection tour, where they actually landed the spaceship, my brother and I spent all day on a couple of those dates, and we worked essentially in the background for no pay, running a bunch of errands and things. So that's the closest I could say they came to working with them. I actually did work, but I didn't get paid. But I had all access, got a chance to meet Dr. Funkenstein, George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, and a number of other members of the band. Later now, I'm established in Atlanta. I've got a little studio in my house in Atlanta, and many of the Atlanta music artists were gathered at my house, and we'd be making music and doing all the other kind of things. We had kind of a vanguard. Later, Atlanta kind of explodes as a mecca of R&B music. But at this particular point, we were kind of low profile, but incredibly talented. So after I left, the group ParliamentFunkadelic would sweep through a town. So many members on the tour would die off and get sick and other things. I mean, it was a huge tour, but people were really abusing their bodies, that they would go through a town and kind of scoop up the local musicians, say, come on out and tour. So they came through, they hit that little nest of group that I worked with and scooped up some of them to take out on tour. I'm pretty sure that I would have went out on tour with them at that time, but I had already left town. Just as later in the reggae world, when reggae bands would come through town, and some of my best friends were longtime session players from Jamaica, Tony Chin, Fully Forward, Santana, Carlos Santa Davis, and Keith Sterling and Earl Chinna Smith. These are some of the icons of Jamaican music. Well, by being so close to them and them training me, then when they would go on tour, the tour would start off small, but then they started adding members as they got more money. And I was usually be on the second round of members added to the group since I played on multiple instruments.
All right. Thank you for that, Brother Keidi. So this is a man of many talents, kings and queens, and a wellspring of life experience. I just want to send a shout out to everyone in the chat right about now, giving thanks to everything is everything over there in the ATL. My big brother, Uncle Koo, Netta Unc is also in the chat. Netta Unc, do stay tuned because we're going to be hollering at you very, very soon for one of these quarantine convos. Or something else. So we'll just stay tuned for that. Brother Macon and Sankofa, also stay tuned, bro, because we're going to get you on there at some point soon. You're on the list, so don't worry about nothing. My queen, Nahanda Sankofa, is also tuned in with my son and our daughter.
Beautiful.
Indeed. Curtis Mohammed, Planter Jason, give thanks once again, family. Once you come in, do like the video and make sure you increase the presence of the video on this social media platform, and also share the link. Copy the link and share it far and wide, yard and foreign. We want it everywhere, kings and queens. This is gotkushTV. This is Quarantine Convos. And trust me, you are in for a treat. Brother Keidi joined us in our first Quarantine Convos when we were speaking to our sister Jamelia. And having said that, do check out our previous Quarantine Convos, kings and queens. We've had a few of them by now. I'll say the names later on. But since then, he dropped a little taste of the information, and the brothers and sisters were inspired, so inspired that we've had a number of calls to bring him back. And so we've done so, and we're going to get into some stuff now in relation to the COVID-19 situation, which is related to Brother Keidi's upcoming book, Panic: What the Coronavirus Pandemic is Telling Us About the State of the World. So before we get into your research, Brother Keidi, just give us an idea of how COVID has hit your particular city, Las Vegas, and in particular, the Black community in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas is kind of an enigma. On one hand, the state of Nevada, where I live, is really an independent-minded group of people. They don't play, and they don't like to be pushed around. And so the idea of isolation is a little strange over here, because this is what is called an open carry state. Meaning, if you got it, you strap it on, you walk down the street with it. Now, be careful holding up your cell phone the wrong way, because they'll mistake that for a gun and bust 9 caps on you. But if you are wearing a pistol around your waist in a holster, they won't shoot you for that here, because if they do shoot you for that here, they're going to have to deal with the other guys who got pistols around their waist and their holsters and said, no, we ain't tolerating that around here. But the cell phone seems to kind of get away. You know how they treat us.
Yes,
but I have not ventured out a whole lot. In certain ways, I treat Las Vegas like a bedroom community. I use the airport and I chill out here. I do my writing. I run my broadcast from here. But when I do get out and I hear from people in the community, it's kind of the same as it is for people of African heritage across America and across other parts of the diaspora. They're terrified. And they're terrified about things that they really don't understand. They're just getting these little tidbits of news and information from their favorite sources, nearly all of which are, in my opinion, Donald Trump is not really far off the mark when he calls them fake news media. It's not that there's so much fake, but when you don't tell the whole truth, that is lying by omission. And what I do is I find the stories, I listen to the stories, and then I go 3-4 layers into the story. I woke up this morning and I heard a story talking about the United States has only approved 4 of these emergency coronavirus tests. Now, there are over 70 of these tests out here, and they're now just saying in the last few days they've approved 4 of them. And one of the 4 that was approved, the Abbott test, they were breaking it down saying, well, this test is not really very good. It's got a low sensitivity. And I said, oh, my ears perk up when I start hearing the background scientific language talking about these antibody tests and the terrible flaws in antibody testing that we've known about since the early 1990s. And so when I come to examine what's going on with this coronavirus, and I look at these two new trends, one is testing. Are the tests useful or not useful? The debate is starting to open up that there are a lot of people are saying this testing process is terribly flawed. Unfortunately, the only thing that they are saying that makes it to the press is it's not discovering enough people. Whereas I have been saying we don't know who's infected because they do not have a proper diagnostic tool. And so if we don't know who's infected, then we have to stop calling this an epidemic and pandemic and then ask the question, is that person sick? What are they sick of? And now we have some major revelations in answering that question. And the last point about being in Las Vegas is that, like other places, the weakest people are being targeted and singled out for an unusual number of tests with these non-tests. And we're finding that now they're trying to say that in America, many parts of America, coronavirus is a Black people disease. And that exposes another aspect of this research that I've been talking about for 2 months now. And that's the subject of what is called a surveillance bias. Essentially this: if I suspect that your group and people you associate with, or however your group is identified, is the carrier of this particular pathogen, infectious disease agent, then I'm going to go into your group and test you more than I'm going to be testing everybody else. And guess what finds? They're finding these tests reactive. And then what they're reacting to is a whole nother scandal, but they're reactive more in your group. So now your group is now the face of this disease, despite the fact that they just didn't really test everybody else the same way. That in the scientific community is written about as surveillance bias.
Yes. Okay. Brothers and sisters, just from the answer to that question, you know, we're not dealing with no joke business historian, so not historian researcher. So make sure you share that link, and invite people to come and check this out. Because I guarantee you, we're going to get into a whole heap of information. Get your pen and your paper ready. Get your little search engine ready. I was about to say get your little Google ready. You know, I was wondering if there's another a better, more eco-friendly search engine to use.
Yeah, we got some big problems with the way that these big corporations are handling this pandemic.
Yes,
and I got big problems with Google, Alphabet, YouTube right now, but we're just going to keep moving forward. We don't die, we multiply.
Multiply, certainly. All right, Brother Keidi. Let's say the most foundational question in relation to COVID-19 is it real? Is there actually such thing as COVID-19?
There is something there, but is it reliable science? I'd say no. Now, if we're looking at what are called coronaviruses, first of all, we have to understand they've been in the medical literature. They've been written about pretty consistently for 65 years. Up until just a couple of years ago, or up until SARS, they just dismissed them as pretty much cold-like ronoviruses. And the crown of the corona is indicative that there's some family there. They only attributed them to mild upper respiratory infections. But in this particular case, the first thing that I started noticing when I started studying this on February 3rd was they're calling all of these deaths coronavirus deaths, but they were so obviously the morbidity factor here, the clinical morbidity of the fact that these were pneumonia deaths. It was very obvious. And pneumonia is still the third leading killer on the planet. Sometimes it's the second leading killer on the planet, with 3 million people around the world dying of pneumonia every year. In a place like China, you'd expect on a yearly basis an average of 125,000 Chinese to die of pneumonia. That's something like 814 people every day. So if all of these coronavirus deaths were pneumonia, then why the hysteria about this new cause of pneumonia? Why don't we just deal with pneumonia, period, and help the people out? Later, as I went deeper and deeper and started asking why these discrepancies, we find out it wasn't just pneumonia. In fact, the Italians kind of blew the lid off of this when a group of Italian researchers started looking at the deaths. They were said at one point to be the epicenter of coronavirus deaths in the world. So finally, a group of Italian researchers said, we're going to look at the death certificates, as many as possible, and ask the question, what comorbidities, meaning existing diseases, were these people suffering from? They then identified, beyond pneumonia, they identified cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes. So now the comorbidities is up to 4. I started now looking for comorbidities of and they also, in Italy, they determined the average age of those dying was 79.5 years. They're 79 and a half years old, and they've got at least 2, and in most cases, 3 comorbidities. And so you would expect 79 and a half year old people to be dying of these diseases anyway at that time, but it got even worse. The more I started searching for comorbidities, we found out there are 11 comorbidities listed in the research, the peer-reviewed scientific research on coronavirus, 11 of them, including one which is called advanced age with geriatric features. That just means old people dying. But another one of those 11 is severe dehydration. And at death, the number 1 symptom of elderly people at death is severe dehydration. That's a number 1 symptom.
Okay. Right. So what I'm getting from what you just said in simple terms is that there is something, but it's not quite what they're saying it is.
There is no evidence that a coronavirus agent as a distinct virus is causing these 11 comorbidities that people were dying from the year before coronavirus and the year before SARS and the year before all of these other phenomenal stories. There are some 18 coronaviruses now that have been identified, 7 of them associated with humans, but others associated with, there's several pork coronaviruses, bovine coronaviruses, cat coronaviruses, dog and bat coronaviruses. And then that brings up a whole nother question. They talk about this thing, its origin in a wet meat market in Wuhan, China. But what about all of the slaughterhouses around the world? Now, in America, they're saying significant number of people who work in slaughterhouses are testing positive for coronavirus on these antibody assays. I say, well, if you work in a slaughterhouse, you're going to test positive on dang near every antibody assay made because you're exposed to what they call viruses. I propose, and no one has stood up to say, KEIDI, that's not right. I've said this for several weeks now, that every piece of meat you buy from a butcher, from a meat market, every piece of meat could be examined, and you might find 10 million of what are called viruses in every piece of meat that goes on every dinner table of people who eat that stuff.
Interesting. So, Brother Keidi, I mean, I guess my next question is kind of partly answered by the first question, but I'll ask it anyway because of the fact that there's so much out there about it. The extent to which corona is natural or created, or something in between. So, what's your perspective on that whole narrative?
Yeah, yes and no. Is it created? Yes. I mean, just the idea of it being created. HIV was created. Does that mean that some mad scientist in his laboratory said, well, let me add a little bit of this and a little bit of that and put some monkey in it and some dog in it and some pig in it and make it attack black people? That never happened. And in this case, I have seen no credible evidence that it ever happened, despite these persistent stories about, well, here's the patent on coronavirus. Well, that's part of the testing process. That's nothing new. And if you understood the way medical testing processes, especially these antibody assays work, when someone discovers something they say distinct, then that means they've discovered a method of finding that distinction. Therefore, that's where the patent comes from. So when people say, well, we found the patent for coronavirus or for mouse HIV, that doesn't mean anything for people who are actually do this research on a long-term basis. Okay. And the idea that it escaped from a Chinese laboratory, this is a biological warfare agent, that doesn't make any logical sense because biological warfare agents were deemed unusable 40 years ago. Realizing if someone tries to create a biological warfare agent, an active agent to attack you, well, there's a lot of gene crossing between distinctive people. So they couldn't design one to attack black people because then it would get the not so black people, and then it would get the mulatto people, and then it would get the people who got much more white than black in them. It doesn't work that way. Biological agents were declared obsolete 40 years ago. There are other agents that are used there, and we could get into that. That's a whole nother level of exploration. People have talked about 5G as the origins of this in Wuhan. The evidence behind that is really, really thin. Not to say that there are not some serious concerns about non-ionizing radiation in the form of 5G, cellular towers, and so. No, there's a lot of great reason to be concerned there. But the idea that this created coronavirus is unsubstantiated by both the available physical evidence, the peer review evidence, as well as the epidemiology doesn't fit that, because it would have simultaneously sprung up in a bunch of other places too. And that's just not supported by the literature.
Okay, so I've got one more question on the biology. Then we're going to get to the sociology in terms of panic. Yeah, but my next question then is that we're in this environment, and obviously there's a lot of evidence of the fact of an existence of a pandemic. Yeah. And our perception would suggest that there's something on ground, because we're hearing about people getting sick and they're being hospitalized, and the symptoms associated with what they say this virus is what people seem to be having. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And then we're hearing about deaths, and we've got social circles whereby family members are passing away and so on and so forth. So it does seem like something is happening. At the same time, when you look at the idea is that the death rate is actually quite low, but but people that we know of are ending up in hospital and having near-death experiences. So how do we just dismiss all of that and absorb what it is that you're telling us, Brother Keidi?
You don't dismiss it. Please don't dismiss it. If you have evidence of large numbers of people showing up in hospital with these comorbidities, you cannot dismiss that. But the idea that they're all connected now by coronavirus, COVID-19, is as questionable a hypothesis as 30 different diseases in the American definition of full-blown AIDS, all caused by a mysterious virus called HIV, which cannot be detected, so they only look for antibodies, which means your body successfully already fought it off. These are incredibly buck wild hypotheses that people being asked to accept. I don't accept that stuff. I grew up in a scientific household. There's this thing called the scientific method, and I'm going to continue to use that. I go into the peer review literature on the coronavirus. Now I have accumulated over 100 references for my upcoming book. So here's what I'll say to you. Now let's imagine COVID never came along, and suddenly we have another agent. It is wearing your shoes too tight. And we find that people who wear their shoes too tight are now being identified. And what are these people suffering from? Well, a number of them have acute upper respiratory syndrome, commonly called cold or flu. A number of them have acute lower respiratory disease, either severe flu or pneumonia. A number of them have chronic lung diseases, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. A number of them have high blood pressure, hypertension. When it's, 62% of Americans are on drugs, and hypertension is one of the main sources. A number of them are diabetic. A number of them have cardiovascular disease, clogged arteries. A number of them have kidney disease. A number of them are thirsty. Chronic dehydration. A number of them have metabolic syndrome, which could include big belly, big fat belly, and overweight and other things. And a number of them are advanced age. They're old with quote unquote geriatric features, meaning the things you associate with old people. So we have 11 different groups of people are all showing up at the hospitals because of their shoes are too tight, my brother. Does that sound absurd to you?
It certainly does.
Well, that's what we have here. And it sounds absurd to me. I'm 64 years young. I still do my push-ups every day, and I brag about them. I'm 64 years young, and I'm old enough to be a wise elder. It's been in science all of my life. I read 10 to 20 peer-reviewed scientific papers almost on a daily basis now. I kind of feel like I'm trapped in a movie. There was a movie out called Idiocracy. I feel I'm trapped in a movie where so many of the world's leaders are stupid. They're D- students, and I'm an A+ student. How do we deal with this? We just got to patiently talk to the people and try and reach the people where they are, what they can understand.
So, Brother Keidi, based upon what you're saying now, it sounds like there's no need for all this isolation. We don't need to be walking down the streets with masks and gloves and lining up to go into supermarkets and self-isolating if we cough. We've got a bit of a chest cough in our homes and then kind of things there. How how cautious should we actually be in real life?
That's such a great question. This is the quote that's going to be the first paragraph of the first page of the first chapter of the book Panic. And this is a quote from a person who is Brandon Brown. He is an epidemiologist. So he's an epidemiology mathematician. Let me slow my roll, get my tongue and my brain in the same sentence. Here's what he said. Don't panic unless you're paid to panic. Brandon Brown told Kaiser Health News, public health workers should be on the lookout. The government should be ready to provide resources. But for everyone else, breathe. That's good advice to avoid a major overreaction. So to everybody out there who's listening to you, Brother Shaka Ra on gotkushTV, take a deep inhalation and then slowly push it out. And do that all day long.
So no gloves and masks. Should we be wearing them to go outside?
I do. I do. You know why? Because I'm disguising myself as another scared American. I'm undercover. And when I see people and we greet each other in the store, I say, I'm just faking this stuff. Gloves and masks. I just faking it. I'm only doing this because there's coming to a point, and you talked about you want to get into the political. It's coming to the point where people are snitching and the people are reporting you for not confining yourself, for not conforming to the panic and the fear and the hysteria that they have committed themselves to. Right. I'm not in that. If I take this little piece of paper, I think you can see my screen. Take a little corner of this piece of paper off of this notepad, and I'm going to take this little corner of a piece of paper and put it right here on my shoulder, and it's sitting right there. That's how afraid of coronavirus I am.
I hear you, my brother.
It doesn't mean anything to me, except for it's got everybody else scared, and them being scared scares me to a point.
So if I take everything that you just said, yeah, and by the way, family, we're going to be opening up the line, and I'm going to be sharing the link in the chat if you want to come and speak to Brother Keidi and ask a question or make a comment. Even challenge, yeah. Even if you think, say, yo, Keidi, we are talking about brethren. We have this study, I have that study. I'm gonna know about this. I'm gonna know about that. And all that. And when you got to, feel free to do that as well. As long as you do so respectfully, brothers and sisters. As long as you do so respectfully. And I know some of you are still trying to get over the fact that brother Uncle Keidi just said that he's 64 years old.
That's right. 64 years young.
4 years young, 64 years young. So before that, we're going to touch on the reason why, because I'm sure it has something to do with the food. So stay tuned, family. We're going to get into Brother Keidi's next book, which is called The Blackest Soil. We'll get there very, very shortly. But in relation to everything that you're saying, Uncle, in that respect, it sounds as though you're saying that the agenda behind this at the moment is political and sociological rather than biological and medical. Am I correct?
Yes. There is a thing called the Hegelian dialectic, which is a formula that some people say is used to manipulate masses to be able to change things. The point is from the Hegelian dialectic, crises, a reaction to the crises, and then a solution. So the crisis is, in this case, they're talking about a reawakening of the same type of global pandemic, such as the 1918 flu pandemic, which at the time they called the Spanish flu, till the Spanish people started calling it the French flu. And then they just said, well, this is called the 1918 flu, and both of y'all are right. But that ended up turning out, if we examine what really happened there, that was a global outbreak of pneumonia. And again, pneumonia always remains one of the top 3 infectious disease killers on the planet. That was just pneumonia. In fact, when you look at the flu deaths data as published in the United States, most people think, and they're told by the media, that flu kills anywhere from 12,000 to 42,000 people a year in the United States. But the death certificates of infectious diseases are required to list the cause of death on those death certificates. And of all of the flu death certificates examined during a period from 2004 to 2009, they only found less than 500 death certificates where it listed flu as a primary cause of death. In the overwhelming majority of cases, it was listed as P&I, pneumonia and influenza, with the P listed first. And so that's something people need to be aware of. The so-called flu deaths are really pneumonia deaths.
And are you suggesting that the COVID-19 deaths are really pneumonia deaths also?
That was my first suggestion. But
Right.
now that they have expanded it to these 11 comorbidities,
Right.
and in the case of New York City, just last week, New York City padded its numbers of coronavirus deaths by almost 4,000 deaths they added without testing.
Brothers and sisters, there you have it. I'm going to put that link in the chat right about now, so you can come through if you have a question, a comment to make to Brother Keidi. You want to seek some clarity, or even if you want to respectfully challenge what Brother Keidi is saying, brothers and sisters, feel free to do so. And whilst you're here, make sure you like the button, hit the like button and the share button. Share it on your social media, share it in your WhatsApp groups, you know, all on your Instagram and all them something there. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Hashtag quarantine convos, kings and queens, hashtag GKTV, hashtag GKTV. 1 second, let me just make sure that I've got this link in the chat properly, so you can come through, family. Yeah, come through. If you're watching on Facebook, feel free to come through to the YouTube, because that's where we're primarily broadcasting from, and you'll be able to interact with the chat. Right, we've got a comment here, Brother Keidi, whilst we're waiting for the comment. The link is in the chat, kings and queens. The link is in the chat. So feel free to come through and ask Brother Keidi a question. There's a couple comments here. Brother Natron says, "You conspiracy theorist quotes, the virus doesn't care if you believe it or not. Natural selection will deal with you." He goes on to say, "No credible doctor goes along with the nonsense. Just the usual quacks and those who see anything their mind dreams up." And he said there was something about there was another comment from Colin T. He says, "No cults here, facts from the peer review papers and the doctors that don't go with the sheeple who need to obey the government for fear of shame." So I'll make general comments in relation to those statements, but also if you could consider recommending some papers to look at that would validate.
I have 99 of them. Now I have different computers that things are on, and so it's harder for me to copy these onto YouTube when the same computer where I have these documents I'm citing right now are on the same computer. It's really kind of hard. Doesn't like to do YouTube and then broadcast on StreamYard at the same time. But I'm just giving you the title. Now here's some quacks. He doesn't want to believe me. A person of African heritage with lifetime involvement in cellular biology and science, the son of a scientist. He doesn't want to believe me. I'm black. He doesn't have to believe me. But maybe he might want to believe Stanford University, one of the top research universities in the United States, therefore one of the top research universities in the world. This article, dated March 24th, 2020, from Stanford University, appears in the Wall Street Journal. Is the coronavirus as deadly as they say? Current estimates about the COVID fatality rate may be too high by orders of magnitude. So he doesn't want to believe me, like Brother Steve Coakley used to say, well, let's give him some good white resources, because some of our people, they just got to have it from the good white resources. So we can go to a number of these references that I have. Again, let's go to, one of the things that the elderly people being diagnosed with this are being given are a spectrum of antivirals. They are, it either is real or it's not. They're either being given antiviral drugs or not. Well, when I look at one of these antivirals that are been listed as COVID drug, this is from the Mayo Clinic. Ooh, those sound like good white people. One of the top research institutions in America.
Yes,
they
sir.
talk about ribavirin, oral root. And then we look at side effects. Imagine people who are suffering from all of these comorbidities that are in the peer-reviewed scientific literature. I didn't make that up as a conspiracy theorist. See, I've encountered these people for 30 years. They're so lightweight, they will never themselves cite a peer-reviewed paper to tell me to go look at. Because if they do cite it, I'm going to go look at it. I'm going to read it through. I'm not going to just read the headlines. But here's what they said about the side effects of one of the antiviral drugs given to COVID patients. It's going to take me a minute to read this one paragraph. But you got 11 different comorbidities, including cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. You're old and you're dehydrated. And here's the drug they're going to give you. Again, the drug is called ribavirin, R-I-B-A-V-I-R-I-N, spelled by good white people. Along with its needed effects, a medicine may cause some unwanted effects. More common side effects: anxiety, black, tarry stools, body aches or pain, chest pain, congestion, cough or hoarseness, crying, or leg, discouragement, dry mouth, dryness of the euphoria, or chills, general feeling of discomfort or illness. Brother, I just got up to the G's of A to Z.
Sorry, Brother Keidi, you might need to
read I'm losing.
Yeah. You might need to read the paragraph again, you know, because you kind of went static for a second.
So I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to start it again. I'm going to start in the middle because I got up to the G's. Let's start from feeling. I'll start with F. Feeling unusually cold, fevers or chills, general feeling of discomfort or illness, headache, hyperventilation, irregular heartbeats, irritability, joint pain, lack of appetite, loss of interest or pleasure, lower back or side pain, mental depression, muscle aches and pains, nausea, nervousness, painful or difficult urination, pale skin, paranoia, poor concentration, quick to react or overreact emotionally, rapid changing moods, restlessness, right upper abdominal or stomach pain, runny nose, shaking, shivering, shortness of breath, sleeplessness, sore throat, sores, ulcers, or white spots on the lips or in the mouth, sweating, tender, swollen glands in the neck, tightness of the chest, trouble with concentrating, trouble with sleeping, trouble with swallowing, trouble breathing with exertion, unable to sleep, unusual bleeding or bruising, unusual tiredness or weakness, voice changes, vomiting, and wheezing. So yeah, us conspiracy theorists are whacks. We're quacks. We're making this stuff up. You know, that person can maybe just like leave the chat because they could be really kind of embarrassed. And, you know,
well, I hear you.
They can say whatever they want, but that does not dispute what is called the scientific method. I've been in that all of my life.
I hear you, Brother Keidi. You know what it is? Because even for myself here, I haven't been reading all these peer review studies and them kind of things there, but I was questioning the extent of certain things. At the same time, I felt it was right to err on the side of caution to some degree until better informed, if that makes sense. And with so much information out there, Brother Keidi, it can be very confusing. I have listened to other people who, like yourself, talk about the scientific method, and do refer to other people as conspiracy theorists in that regard, and make these claims. Yeah, so I do understand that people are confused, right? Or you know, I'm not quite sure what to believe or how to move and how to operate in this situation, which is why we're having this particular conversation right about now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's appreciable. But for people to be insulting like that, they got to be chastised. They got to be pushed into a corner and say, okay, you have a better way. Back it up or back up. Because they're confusing the issue. Yes, and this is one of the problems with these conspiracy theorists who want to call people who do science conspiracy theorists. These quacks who are so quick to call others quacks. I've known about these people. I've battled these people. John Henry Clark made a beautiful statement, and I love this statement. He says, I only debate those who are my peers. All others I teach. Indeed. So if someone is my peer, I've debated my peers, and they didn't even know they were debating a reggae musician. But I've debated people on major stages on vaccines, on HIV, etc. And I always come to these prepared to win. I can't afford to put myself out there and not win a debate against Dr. Jeffrey Galpin of the Shared Medical Research Foundation, who's a world-renowned expert on HIV and AIDS, and I'm debating him on a radio station. I can't afford to lose that debate because our people's lives are on the line here.
On that subject, you raised the issue that was going to be my next question. And by the way, family, the link is in the chat. So if you want to come through and ask Brother Keidi a question or make a comment, feel free to do so. Yeah, just do so. You know what I'm saying? Join us on gotkushTV. This issue now, the other issue that has come up since in the last couple of weeks is the issue of Bill Gates and his vaccination programs. And I know this is a subject that you would have looked into quite extensively, but that has raised its head again in relation to COVID-19. I'll just get your general comment on Bill Gates, because there's a lot of debate around that at the moment, and some even in the Black conscious community are suggesting that we should be trusting this Bill Gates vaccination program and his whole medical science agenda.
There's I woke up this morning with a line of inquiry, and this is how I put it together. There were 5 articles in this, not only just peer review. I'm citing the manufacturers of COVID tests, and here's how I themed my research. And I'm going to probably put this on my Friday program. Why not to trust these new fast-tracked COVID antibody tests? And we talk about Bill Gates. He's calling for fast tracking of vaccinations. And I've written 4 books on vaccinations. We never did it to our children based upon the research I've done for many years. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you before you vaccinate, you should investigate. And I give you the materials to investigate. But these articles, first one, this comes from National Public Radio. Study raises questions about false negatives from quick COVID-19 tests. The second article, and this was from studies at the Cleveland Clinic, who tested 239 specimens known to contain coronavirus, and that itself is a very questionable statement to make without a gold standard proof. And there is no gold standard proof of coronavirus isolation. I find you Chinese peer-reviewed articles that say we did not establish a gold standard to prove this infectious agent. So without that gold standard test, everything else is real flaky down the line. The second article I found is from the company making the test. Detect COVID-19 in as little as 5 minutes. And we talked about that was one of the 4 emergency use authorization tests the United States put out, despite the fact that there are over 70 tests out here circulating. And so I break it down. I don't have time to go through the details of this. The third article is also from the same website, or is the same company on Awad, and we talked about them listing some of the problems with the testing and the things to look out for. I'm going to read with you just 3. Here's the article source. Now, for people who understand, this is my system. This is the scientific method. I can't afford to do quack stuff, internet rumors, and listen to people whose only purpose is to troll us. And at a certain point, that person turned into a troll, and don't even respond to trolls beyond 2 or 3 responses. Then let them go. Let them talk to themselves. Here's what they say. The Awad ID Now COVID-19 product insert. Now, when you have these medical tests, these drugs, you have to look for the product insert and read it before you say, okay, I'll do it. Here's what they said under all the precautions. Here's number 18, 19, and 20. 18, once reacted, the test base contains large amounts of amplified target, amplicon, that's the source. Do not disassemble the test base and transfer cartridge. In the case of a positive sample, this could lead to amplicon leakage and potential ID Now COVID false positive test results. Number 19 of their cautions. At a low frequency, clinical samples can contain inhibitors that may generate invalid results. Site-to-site invalid rates may vary. Number 20, due to the high sensitivity of the assays run on the instrument, contamination of the work area with previous positive samples may cause false positive results. Handle samples according to a standard laboratory practices, clean instruments and surrounding surfaces according to instructions proven to stop this. But here's the thing. They're giving this test for people who are driving by in their cars. They're leaning out the car window. They stick a cotton swab in their nose or in their mouth. This is a nasopharyngeal test. So they're sticking a cotton swab in their nose, and then they're giving the test. That is no clean, sterile situation. And the machine said to calibrate these tests, it says specifically on the machine's product sheet, it needs to be in a stable, high-level laboratory, not on the side of a highway or the side of a parking lot with people driving by.
Point taken, Brother Keidi. Once again, the link is in the chat, family. If you want to come through, speak to Brother Keidi, ask a question, feel free to do so. And family, I know there's a lot of information coming at you at speed at the moment, so do feel free, because this video will be available for playback once we are done. But also, you know, take down the names of these articles, yeah, and go and do your own research. Please do so. All right, please do so. We encourage you to do so, whether you agree or you disagree. Be informed, yeah, and that's the point of us, you know, being here today. Natron says, Shakira, be smart, my brother, protect yourself. With all he's saying, he still wears a mask.
And why did I say I wore that?
Yeah, you said because you're disguising yourself. To be honest with you, I don't wear a mask and gloves when I go out.
Yeah, we don't need to do that, man. But
and that's what
that saves more masks for those people out there who might be trolling, who believe in this thing. Listen, you can believe in that all you want, but when your belief system encroaches upon my natural rights as a human being on this planet, we have a problem. We have a conflict. And when we look 100 years ago, all of this happened before. We talk about political. 100 years ago, all of this happened before, with a global economic crisis causing the collapse of the Weimar Republic in Germany. What replaced it? The Nazi Party. When we saw a global economic crisis hit Italy, what replaced it? Fascism under Mussolini, which then spreads on to fascism in Spain. This is history repeating itself, Malcolm X said. Of all of our studies, history is most qualified to reward our efforts. I say at times like this, we need to listen to the wise and esteemed elders who came before us, including the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who said, above all things, get organized, get scientifically organized. Stay unorganized, you will be weakened, you will be defeated, you will be conquered. Get organized, and you will compel the world to respect you. The internet trolls, I have no interest in their respect at all. But I tell you, Brother Shaka Ra, and you know me, when I go to the African continent,
yes, sir.
The second day I was ever in Africa, based upon a couple of questions I asked the ambassador from Zimbabwe to Egypt and asked the governor of the Harare district, the second day I was there, this never happened to me in America. They sent someone over while I was eating dinner with my friends, and they said, excuse me, but the governor and the ambassador would like you to join them at their table for dinner. My brother, we are African people on this planet. It's time we stand up and hold our head up proud and take our throne back.
I agree, Brother Keidi. You've with your last statement, you've kind of preempted my next question. Because
that's how we're in sync, my brother.
Indeed. Because I'm saying to myself, well, really, I'm the spirit of Brother Amos Wilson, possessed me for a hot second, and he's saying, well, it's all well and good. We're saying these things, but we have to be prescriptive, about our analysis, if that makes sense.
That's
so
right.
with all that inherent in our analysis, there are encoded things to act upon, forms of action that we should be taking. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if they're all manufacturing this for panic and for lockdown, then we should be out in the streets and holding parties and rebelling, and you know what I'm saying, civil disobedience should be the order of the day right about now. Why are you proposing any of these things, or what should we be doing in relation to whatever the government agenda is?
We should have some plans. We should have some planning. No, I'm not necessarily going to tell all my business out here. But one of the things we should be doing is stick to what was your program already. Okay. My new book has just come out. This book is about 11 months in the making. And it very clearly defines what my book is. This is my 8th book on Pan-African economic development, especially sustainable development, to put us back in our position to go into, through, and beyond the 21st century for the next 6 centuries into the future. The book is called The Blackest Soil. Africa Can Feed the World, a scientific roadmap for agricultural preeminence for the 21st century. I said Africa can feed the world. People, I've heard many people say that. Africa can feed the world. I asked them, how many people can Africa feed? Oh, a whole lot. I said, well, I can't answer a question like that. I say, based upon the fact that Africa has 60% of the unused arable land on the planet, based upon the fact that Africa has a potential of 2.160 billion acres of land. That's about 874 billion hectares of land. Based upon organic farming methods, can produce land of 2,000 calories per day diet of mostly organic food and feed anywhere from 6 to 12 people per acre. Africa has the potential, converting all of that, and has all the water to do so and the human labor to do so. Africa can feed 12.9 billion people. Currently, there are 7.74 billion people on the planet. So Africa can feed everyone on the planet for the rest of the century. And we can put this system into place by the end of the decade. Brother, that is not no conspiracy theory. That's a plan.
Well, Brother Keidi, I'm gonna ask you a slightly facetious question.
Okay, hit me with your best shot, my brother Shaka Ra.
The idea that Africa can feed the world. Somebody listening is thinking, well, Africa been feeding the world. Yeah, we're feeding the world for the last 500 years. Africa is not feeding Africa. So what would you say to that, Aurora?
I say that statement is far too true for me to feel comfortable with it. The most preeminent agricultural exporters in the world include the United States and Brazil and other parts. The wealth of the Western Hemisphere was based upon agricultural preeminence. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Who provided the unpaid, low-cost labor for the world's most preeminent agricultural export societies?
Yes, sir.
African labor, stolen labor.
Yes,
but it
sir.
was beyond that. In the book, I cite some of the geniuses that were amongst these enslaved people, but like Dr. George Washington Carver and a number of others. It was Africans who taught rice growing techniques in the Western Hemisphere to the point that the United States becomes at one point, the world's leading rice exporter. It was George Washington Carver who saved Southern agriculture by teaching them crop rotation and nitrogen fixing in the soil. George Washington Carver looms very large in my own personality, as you can imagine. My backyard laboratory, where I have been growing my own organic food now for almost 40 years, my backyard garden is called the George Washington Carver Organic Gardening Laboratory, where I'm constantly trying out new techniques that are going to be in the book, techniques of microbiota management that increase crop yield significantly without having to go to chemical inputs like pesticides, NPK fertilizer, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what I do. This is the application in practical terms of the scientific method. We don't just study it. We don't just accumulate all this information to debate with people who probably don't deserve more than 1 minute of our time. We're doing this because we have a destiny. We have a date with destiny, and we're going to give to our children, to our grandchildren, a world much better than the world we inherited. At 64, I have been blessed in my life. Now it's time for me to secure that blessing for future generations.
Kings and Queens, the book is out soon. There are 16 chapters in the book, and I'm browsing through some of these the titles and the subheadings and so on and so forth. One of which I know my brother Unc Aku will like. It says Alchemy and the Metaphysics of Kemet.
That's right. Now that's in the latter part of the book. We had to build a case before we realize now we're in charge and we're alchemists again.
Most definitely. And the fact is, Brother Keidi, because I mean, I'm in the mind of Brother Thomas Sankara from Burkina Faso at the moment. When he made between 1983 and 1987, Burkina Faso food self-sufficient in the space of 4 years, right? So do you address the issue? I mean, there's a chapter here entitled, there's one, chapter 6 is Africa's land and water abundance. Then it says, chapter 7 is African farming needs and increased yields. Now, it suggests to me that obviously, in terms of before feeding the world, food self-sufficiency must be a priority. So do you address that in the book?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and one of the things happening in Africa right now, many of these foreigners are coming in and appropriating huge amounts of land to grow the food solely for export with no interest in feeding the Africans first. Yeah. So we cannot afford that mistake to be made. We're going to scale up. We have programs in the book to support the economic stability of subsistence farmers, which in many countries or many parts of Africa, subsistence farming is 80% of people's livelihood. Well, we got to make sure that subsistence farmers now get a chance to start building wealth and building savings and get out of this living off of $3, $2 per day poverty index, which has unfortunately persisted across Africa. We talk about the new economic program for African development, the African Union's Agenda 2063, and these multiple targets. I saw a whole bunch of these strategic targets of nations and different organizations for different stages of agricultural accomplishment and preeminence. I do quote the president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwunmi Adesina, brilliant man, formerly Nigerian Minister of Agriculture and Foreign Development, Rural Development, where he says in the future, the millionaires and billionaires of Africa will be created through agriculture. And I completely agree with that. So I've written a strategic plan to build these millionaires and billionaires. One of the primary things of the book, in the end of the book, we talk about the creation of the Pan-African Agricultural Development Institute, PAADI. And we intend to create a series of at least 12 laboratories across the African continent, the United States, and the CARICOM region. I don't think we're going to be able to do this in the UK because there's not a lot of blacks own much land in UK that I'm aware of. Maybe I could be corrected.
No, you're not wrong. And that's mostly because over half the black population in the UK lives in London, which is a city. So there's not land and agriculture is not paramount in terms of our, you know,
and even my friends who I visit there, they got these tiny little backyard lots. And I go there year after year after year. I say, when are you going to plant food out there? Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to get around to it. No, you do that like tomorrow. Especially with the crisis going on right now. You go into the grocery stores and entire rows are empty. I've been growing my own food for 40 years. I don't know if you've seen the photographs, but when somebody walks into my backyard, they say, damn, how are you going to eat all this food? I said, I'm not going to eat it all. I'm going to feed you. I want to feed the world. Brother Shakara, what did I say?
You want to feed the world.
I want to feed the world. I feed a lot of people. I can't do so as an African American. But as an African, I can set up a process to literally feed every man, woman, and child on this planet a daily diet of 2,000 calories of mostly organic food. That's we have that capacity as Africans, but we can't do that as Afro-Brits.
I agree with you, my brother Keidi, and you're tapping into another concern then, in the sense of the fact that if I'm in my revolutionary Pan-African consciousness, I am seeing the need to kind of to institute the policies and the social organization and the systems of the institutions of economic fortitude that it would require to really institute a system like what you're talking about, an actual overhaul of the current system that we have on the continent and throughout the Caribbean would need to be embarked upon. That's what it sounds like to me, because in effect, a lot of what you're saying is not new. A lot of it is updated for the present moment. But Africans have tried to do solve some of these problems from before, and the blockage has always been the fact that we have neocolonialism, currently in operation, whereby our governments are beholden to the wills and whims of foreign powers. So does that make sense? And do we need to overhaul our political systems in order to make way for the plans that you are proposing?
Oh, absolutely. And governance is a significant portion of the book as you going through the index. That's a very important chapter. Leadership is already adjusting. They're creating all of these new structures for Pan-African trade with the new African agreement for trade. I can't remember the acronym right now. And a number of other agreements. We see these dynamic leaders now standing up and changing the destiny. We have a third generation of African national leaders now. And this third generation, they're getting real close to what we needed for the last 600 years when Africa's population was depleted by 600 million people because of the various exploitative practices and the wholesale genocidal slaughter. We see leaders like Adesina Akinwumi Adesina of the African Development Bank, Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya. Leaders like the dynamic and brilliant Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia, sisters in leadership positions across the continent, making major changes and transformation. All the while we have another generation being educated that's going to take this level of leadership to an even higher level. In the book, I profile 3 African billionaires whose work to me is just so brilliant that in the book, I openly state, I intend to work alongside Mo Ibrahim of the Ibrahim Foundation, Tony Elumelu of the Elumelu Foundation, who's the one who created this term Afro-capitalism, which is an electrifying term, and of course, our favorite of all. And he's opened offices in London and New York now to fulfill his pledge, Aliko Dangote, who in 2017 pledged he would be coming this year to Eurozone and to the America with $20 to $50 billion worth of investment partnership capital to develop primarily in 2 sectors, petrochemicals and renewable energy. I've been preparing for him to arrive for 3 years. And now this new book, The Blackest Soil, was specifically written to greet and introduce myself to him, Mo Ibrahim, and Tony El Melo, and others, including Dr. Eric Kanachu and Brother Keidi, who I've had multiple conversations with her, and we've pledged that we will be working together. So we're ready to step up. I'm just asking your listening audience, I want some of you to step up with me. I do see people in this chat right now. I can't mention all of your names, but I recognize you. I see you. You're brilliant people. You're committed people. We are now ready to step up, and I want you to be a part of the Pan-African Agricultural Development Institute. Go to theblackestsoil.com and get involved in what we're doing. Order the book from Amazon.com. That way I don't have to ship it from the United States, which I'll lose money on. I have to ship a book from US to UK. But now we have it set up to where they're printing the book in the various territories. Amazon.com has it now in Kindle and in print, The Blackest Soil. And I'm really, really proud, Brother Shaka Ra. You know, you and I, we're going to have some off-the-air meetings and talk about what you and I are going to be doing on a transnational basis. We're truly Africans of the world at this point. We got to step up to that position.
I hear you, Brother Keidi. I'm not going to lie, Brother Keidi. I know some of my political activist brothers and sisters are throwing stuff at the screen right now. What you said in your last commentary. Feel free to come true, family. If you're one of my revolutionary Pan-African brothers and sisters who have some challenges or anything, we've got 10 minutes left here. So we're going to keep it 10 more minutes. And so speak now or forever hold your peace. I don't want to send a special shout out to Brother Kwame Pianki over there in Detroit. Give thanks for tuning in, my brother. And Brother Kwame Pianki was also on IRI FM this last Sunday gone with Sister Kabu Ma'at Keru speaking on the COVID-19 situation. And so you'll find that on the IRI FM YouTube channel. So do check that out. And Brother Kwame Pianki, do stay tuned because we're going to be hollering at you soon to bring you through for a quarantine convos because we want to connect with our family around the world, kings and queens. That's how it goes. Right, I'm looking forward to reading this book, Brother Keidi. I'm very interested. I'm not an agriculturalist myself, but I'm very interested in the politics and economics of food self-sufficiency and how we can develop independent African cooperatives around achieving that goal on a more macro scale. If we understand that macro development is built upon the foundation of the micro, the different pockets being able to come together. So I know you've done some work on this as we draw towards the end of our show this evening. Give our listeners an idea of some of the work that you've done and some tips that you would give in terms of developing our own gardens and our own living spaces into viable agricultural institutions.
Again, I have a 40-year background in organic horticulture. The previous book, before The Blackest Soil, was entitled Industrial Hemp, Uses and Opportunities. And I spoke a lot about that this week as this was 420 week, which is the code for cannabis and hemp. And I put this book into the hands of various people. There was a group here in the United States of investors said they wanted exclusive rights to the book, but after 2 years of waiting them to sign over the check, which give them rights, and they said, well, we're having a hard time accessing our money. I finally sent the book. I published it myself. Put the book in the hands of some of my friends, and they formed the Hemp Association of Ghana. Check the record. Hemp Association of Ghana was able to use that book and $1 million export deal with a Portuguese-based company. They had to also, they were given 3 land grants. First, it was 100 acres to do this work. Later, it's been given to them as 5,000 acres near Kumasi, the second largest city in Ghana. But they had to get the Ghanaian parliament to change the laws to allow them to grow, and at the same time they could grow and to decriminalize medical marijuana in Ghana. Now Ghana follows Uganda, Malawi, and there's a couple of other African nations that have now allowed for the cultivation of industrial hemp for export. And in the case of Uganda, they signed a major deal for high THC export from Uganda to Germany. And so this is one of those places where I claim in the book, we have the possibility of creating a $4.3 trillion food export economy by the end of this decade, it will be well established, if not accomplish that high number. Now, that's a lot, but that is also based upon we feed ourselves first, and then we export the surplus. $4.3 trillion export for African agriculture is the dominant agricultural system on the planet.
So, Brother Keidi, we have a show on gotkushTV called Voyage to Motherland. Our sister and brother Stella B and Nat Nai, we're traveling through Ghana, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone between last year and this year. They've documented some of their journey, and we're bringing that to our brothers and sisters. What would you suggest, or what nations would you suggest, if Africans who are watching right now are looking to either repatriate or invest or start business in an African nation? What African nations would you suggest?
I'm most excited about the East African community. The East African community, Kenya is the core state, the largest economy, but it also includes Tanzania. It includes Rwanda, the cleanest, safest country in Africa. And it also includes Burundi, which is now stabilizing, and hopefully they'll be following the Rwanda model. It also includes Uganda, which has the Makerere University, the MIT, the premier technical university on the African continent is Makerere. And it ultimately is to include South Sudan, which I think has stabilized now. The security crisis in South Sudan, I think, is over. And also will include Somalia once that crisis there is finished. And that could most likely draw in Eritrea as well. So we're talking about the East African community is on the verge of federating. They're meaning the United States or federated states of the East African community. That could happen within the next 2 to 5 years. And that is really exciting. That will be followed by ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, some 17 states there, SADC. So we're starting to see the inertia towards the unification of the continent, expected to be inaugurated as a continental federation, the African Union, by 2051. So much of my planning is based upon this 30-year period. And at 65, I plan on being young and spry and healthy and engaging to watch all of this come to fruition and be around for 10 more years as an elder advisor to the young leadership, the management that's going to be managing the world's largest nation, the most powerful empire in world history. I call it the Great Swahili Empire. That's the vision. We are articulated that one in the new global economy. And the new global economy, I'm suggesting, should best be led from the front by African people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shout out to my brothers and sisters from Next Level Development, because they are a group of people who have been doing some work in terms of creating ways for Africans to repatriate to Zambia, the beautiful nation of Zambia. And there's a lot of excellent work going on there, brothers and sisters. So we look forward to all. And brothers and sisters from the 100 Black Men and others who are doing this beautiful work of laying out the black carpet, so to speak, and creating opportunities and institutions for our brothers and sisters to make a repatriation to the continent of Africa seamless and productive. Brother Keidi, I know brothers and sisters are going to want to know where they can stay in touch with you and get all of your how many is it, 30-something books? You know what I'm saying?
35 books out as of after 2 days ago. There's now 35 books.
Yes.
In 4 weeks, a book called Panic, what the coronavirus pandemic tells us about the state of the world today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we look forward to all that. So where can they keep in touch with you and get your books, Brother Keidi?
They can keep in touch with me on my daily broadcast at liveradio.com. I go live from 5 p.m. GMT, 6 days a week. It's a great broadcast. And also, I'm putting more and more of my books up on Amazon to have them printed in the local territory. So if you're in Japan, you can get it printed in Japan. We don't have to pay the overseas shipping. And this is especially true. You know, I have a lovely family there in United Kemet. And I look forward to when you guys going to invite me back over there, man.
Soon, bro. Soon, but you know what, Brother Keidi?
Soon come?
Yeah, man, soon come. But you know what it is, Brother Keidi? Yeah. Now that you ask that question, for all my brothers and sisters in the States here, because some of the brothers and sisters listening, I know would want me to say this here. So, and it's not even my big issue, but oftentimes the question is, when will our brothers and sisters in the States invite us over? Because we've got brilliant scholars over here and brilliant activists over here that want to connect with our brothers and sisters over here. And we always bring you over to meet us. We want you to bring us over to meet our family.
That's right.
The States, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, think about that, Brother Keidi, and spread the word.
I completely agree. Now there is one. I agree with you 100%. There is one caveat here, though. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, bro. I'm ready.
Most of the time I come over there, I pay for my trip. So if you can pay for your trip over here, I guarantee you we're going to connect you in.
I hear you, brother.
I guarantee you we'll connect you. And we have to do that for you, your dignitaries. Now, I would love to be able to pay for your trips. I used to do so, but that was before the recession kind of took the foundation out of what we had going in that time. Now we got to rebuild it even much stronger, which are the strategies in the books, Futurenomics and Panic and the Blackest Soil, Industrial Hemp. You can see all of my books at my personal website, KEIDI.biz, KEID.biz, and go into the bookshelf. You're gonna see I write about a bunch of things.
Yes, sir. He does, brothers and sisters. And I've always said, you know, I've shared some very respectful and humble disagreements with my Uncle Keidi at times, but I always respect the issues that he's actually bringing to the forefront are the issues that we need to be concerned with. And so it's entirely okay. It's entirely plausible for us to have disagreements. We should only make sure that we disagree from an informed.
That's right.
And that we don't allow disagreements to become irreconcilable, because the reality is that even among the European society at the moment, they're having their own debates around COVID-19 within the scientific community, you know, and these kinds of things.
That's right.
So we are entitled to have our disagreements within our own community, kings and queens. We just make sure that we disagree respectfully and we come from an informed position. But once again, the most important thing is that we are asking the questions and we are trying to address the issues. So we give thanks to you, my brother Keidi, my Uncle Keidi, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on these shows again soon. And when you come to the UK, make sure you let us know early in advance, because we're going to make sure that we get you on gotkushTV in one way, shape or form or another.
Yeah, we appreciate love that. And I want to say greetings also. I see my brother, and he is a regular program here on LAB Radio, Netter This is he's well received there in the UK as he travels there. This is one of the most brilliant young men of a generation. I am so fortunate to be surrounded by you, Brother Shaka Ra, Brother Kwame. I see him in the house. Brilliant, Brother Netter Nuria Safran to our broadcasting over here. We have the mental stuff, people. Yes, now we have to get a plan that can pull all of our resources together, and let's conquer.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to see Netter on here soon. In fact, we were planning some stuff before COVID kicked off. We were planning some stuff for Brother Ark to come to the UK, and you know, we're gonna have to postpone that. But it's there. As soon as we're allowed to, we're going to make sure that takes place, because this is the only African-centered marketing consultant in our global African family right about now, and so that expertise needs to be out there. So do stay tuned for that. Thank you, my family, for tuning into this show today. We hope that, brothers and sisters, wherever your perspective, you are staying healthy, you are staying safe, and your family members are doing well. Do stay tuned for the next quarantine convos on gotkushTV, which will be taking place this Thursday coming. And our guest, well, we're going to let you know who our guest is soon, kings and queens. But we've got some fantastic guests lined up for you for the next few weeks on Quarantine Convos. This is gotkushTV, your #1 Black conscious media platform coming out of the UK. We have a number of shows on our roster, and you can find out about all of them by checking out our website, gotkushtv.com. That is gotkushtv.com. We are going to sign out with our promotional video. Brother Keidi, do feel free to stay on the line until after the video, and we'll sign off properly. All right. But yes, family, stay tuned. Yeah, check out gotkushtv.com to find out about all of our different shows, and we've got more stuff coming for you later on in the year, family, including a special edition, live edition of The Wordsmith. So do stay tuned, family. This has been gotkushTV. This has been Brother Keidi Obi Awadu. You ain't got nothing if you ain't got kush.
gotkushTV. After a stellar 2019, your #1 black conscious media platform is getting ready to go into overdrive for 2020. As we promised, last year we launched The Inside. We premiered the pilot for the Black Group Economic Show. We dropped 2 new seasons of Wordsmith, the #1 platform for artists with a message in the music. We've seen you out on the road, the Black Carpet Awards, the Reparations March, the Legislature of Excellence, and more. We brought you Dr. Mumbi, the legendary Bob Andy, Queen Diambi, Kemi Seba, Esther Stanford Hossein, Leo Mohammed, Brother Leader Badlaka, and more. And now, 2020 is set to see gotkushTV taking it to the next level. First up, look out for the official launch of the gotkushTV website, your official portal for all things GKTV, including new shows, news, views, and reviews, soon to be serving you with advertising opportunities and the launch of the GKTV African market. gotkushtv.com will also be a global hub for all things black, conscious, and empowering from all over the black world. Black achievements, black excellence, education, health, positive black imagery, entrepreneurs, black brands, and charity work. All this and more can be found here at gotkushtv.com. Then there's the new shows. Decipher, the dynamic discussion and debate show. Health is Wealth, practical tips for living in wellness. Kush Communiversity, home of Black Warrior Scholarship. And UK Fire Entertainment, bringing you a slew of music videos for your listening and viewing pleasure. Look out for more of The Insight, Wordsmith, and the full 3rd season of the Black Group Economic Show, all coming your way soon. As always, the GKTV film team is available for hire to cover your events and all filming needs. Visit us at gotkushtv.com for hire inquiries and more information. Stand by all black businesses through our website, social media, and show content. We have monumental advertising, sponsorship, and network opportunities catering especially for you. gotkushTV is about to take off. To join us for the ride, there's 4 things you can do. 1, subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell to make sure you don't miss a release. Join us on all social media and hit up gotkushtv.com to subscribe to our mailing list for exclusive opportunities in the near future. 2, like. Let us know you're feeling our content by hitting that ever so important button of approval. 3, comment. We want to hear your feedback on everything we're putting out.
Yes,
so make sure your presence is felt in the comment section. 4, share. Spread the word by hitting that share button and exposing your circle to the magnificence that is gotkushTV. We look forward to building with you throughout 2020 and servicing you with high quality black media production. gotkushTV. Beyond discussion, beyond debate, we put the power in black media.